Good morning.
Good morning.
It is so kind of you to invite me to come visit you today. My name is Artemesia, and I lived about 70 years after Easter. I lived in Asia Minor. I was Greek-speaking, and I used to tell stories. I was a storyteller, and I loved to tell the Gospel of Ruth. So I thank you for inviting me to come here today. Cynthia took me on a tour. I saw the King's Market and Trader Joe's, and I don't think I can handle that. But I really love this water that comes out of faucets in your home. I could dig that. But you invited me to tell you the Gospel of Ruth, so let me begin. Here begins the Gospel of Ruth. The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, Son of God. And Hannah and I were in the marketplace at our fish stall, selling and bartering fish, this market day to whoever came by. And a man Jesus, walked into the village and walked across the open area, proclaiming, "The realm of God has arrived. Turn, trust the good news." And we saw him walk down by the lake. And we could see him talking to Peter and Andrew. And suddenly, Peter and Andrew got up, and they just left their nets and accompanied Jesus. Now, the men from the next boat over, they came and got the nets the rest of the way up on shore, but they just left their nets and went with Jesus. And Jesus came up past us, and he looked at Hannah, and he looked at me, and he said, "Come follow me, and I will make you fishers of people." And we just got up. We left our fish. It was late in the day, most of them were sold, but still, we just left our fish and accompanied them. And as the sun went down and the Sabbath began, we went and joined the synagogue assembly. Thaddeus was there. You know Thaddeus, he was the man with the demon. He was disrupting the worship again, yelling and screaming. I feel so sorry for his family. They tried to keep him under control. They tried to keep him quiet. But you can't control a demon. And Jesus looked at Thaddeus and he said to the demon, "Shut up!" And the demon came out of him. And Thaddeus was in his right mind. And then we went to Martha's house. And Martha's mother was sick with a fever. And we told Jesus, and Jesus went into her and took her by the hand and raised her up, and she came out and she ministered to us. And then we went about with Jesus in the villages. He was proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing people and casting out demons. And the crowds around us kept getting bigger and bigger. And we were back in Capernaum again, and the scribes and the Pharisees started questioning Jesus. By what authority does he forgive sins? Why does he even tax collectors and sinners? Why does he work on the Sabbath? And Jesus always has these lovely retorts. The sick not the well need a doctor. The Sabbath was made for humanity, not humanity for the Sabbath. I love the way Jesus could silence these so-called authorities. As the crowds kept getting bigger, Jesus chose some of us to be with him. He chose Hannah and me and some other women. He chose Peter and Andrew and some other men. And we were to be with him and to go out and preach and heal. And one day we were in a house, the courtyard was full of people, and Jesus' mother came and his brothers, and they wanted to take him home where he belonged. But Jesus looked around at all of us and said, "Whoever does the will of God is my mother and brother. You are my mother and brothers and sisters." And the crowd kept getting even bigger. So we prepared a boat, and he got in the boat and taught. The crowd was on the shore, and he taught the people from the boat. And he told all these parables, these little stories. You remember them. The sower and the seed and all those kinds of soil. The farmer who planted and waited and waited and waited and then finally reaped. Or the tiny grain of mustard that grew into a great big bush. And then we asked him to explain the stories, to tell us what they meant. And he said to us, to you is given to know the mystery of the realm of God. But then he said, don't you understand these stories? How are you going to understand all the stories? I wish he had a little more patience. I wish he'd explained a bit more. I heard James and John saying the same thing. I don't think they understood any better than we did. Maybe not as well. Then we got into the boat. Now I hate boats. I am terrified of the water. I can't swim. But Jesus had us get in the boat, so I got in the boat. It was worse. It was worse than I could possibly ever have imagined. The wind came up. The spray was horrendous, filling the boat. We were all terrified. And Jesus was asleep on a cushion at the back of the boat. So we woke him up. And he got up, and he looked at the sea and the wind, and he said, shut up, as he had to the demons. And the wind went right down, and the sea got calm. Who is this? The wind and the sea obeyed him. Then we were going along, and Jairus, the synagogue leader, came and asked Jesus to come heal his daughter. So we were, all of us, going along on the path, and suddenly Jesus stopped and said, who touched me? And we said, who touched you? You're in the midst of a pushing, jostling crowd, and you want to know who touched you. Jesus said, yes, I felt power go out of me. And Sarah came forward and knelt before him. You know Sarah. Sarah's the woman who's been bleeding for 12 years and spent all her money on doctors and was just sicker. Some of the men stay away from her because they think she's unclean and pollute them before God. But Jesus didn't. Jesus looked at her, Jesus called her daughter, and said, your trust has made you well. We were delighted Sarah is one of us again. And we continued and went on into Jairus' house. The mourners stopped. The daughter was already dead. But Jesus went in with a couple of us, and he raised her and told her mother and father to give her something to eat. And then Jesus sent us out, 2 by 2. I went with Hannah, and we went through villages. We went through villages proclaiming the arrival of God's realm, and we healed people. We cast out demons. Gracious God has given us also this power. And then we all gathered together again, and a huge crowd came to hear Jesus teach out in the wilderness. He was teaching for 3 days. So we went to Jesus and asked him to dismiss the crowd so they could go buy food so they wouldn't faint on their journey home. And Jesus looked at us and said, you feed them. We said, we feed them? You want us to go and spend the money to buy food for this mob? Jesus said, you feed them. See what food we have. And we found some loaves of bread and a couple of fish. Jesus blessed them, broke it, and we distributed it to everybody. Now, Hannah and I have stretched food. We are pretty good at it. We've had to be, but nothing like this. Nothing like this. We took baskets of food left over. Then we got into a boat. This time, Jesus set us on ahead, and he remained on the shore, praying. And the men were rowing hard against the wind. And suddenly we saw an apparition of those who had us, I don't know what. We were terrified, walking on the water. We screamed out, and it was Jesus. And he'd gotten the boat with us, and immediately we were at the other shore. What was this? We could walk on water. And then once we got back over there on the other shore, some scribes had come down from Jerusalem to interrogate Jesus. And they asked him, why, what about washing pots and eating food and all this stuff? And Jesus told them, none of this matters. goes into you doesn't matter. It's what comes out of you. Love, things like that. I love the way he can handle the official authorities. But you know, this would be kind of dangerous. These were scribes from Jerusalem. They don't like people who are popular with the crowds who they can't control. This might get risky. Then we went up to Gentile territory. We went up to a village near Tyre over here. Jesus, just us now with Jesus. And Jesus was trying to stay hid. He was trying to get away from the crowds. And we went into a house. You suppose Jews lived there? I don't know. Anyway, a woman came in, a pagan woman, a Syrophoenician woman, and knelt before him. How did he think he could be hid? Strangers coming into a village, he just passed instantly into it. But the woman came in and asked him to heal her daughter, to cast the demon out of her little girl. And you know what Jesus said? Jesus said, let the children first be fed. It is not right to take the children's food and throw it to dogs. Now, I Artemesia, I think I would have left that in there. This man isn't going to heal my pagan daughter who he thinks is a dog. But Ruth didn't feel that way. After all, they were Jews, the people of God, and she was an unclean pagan. But the woman didn't go away. She called Jesus Sir, as we're all taught to do. She said, Sir, look, sir, we may be dogs. But sir, even the little dogs under the table get the children's crumbs. And Jesus said, for your word, for what you have said, go your way, your daughter is well. And Jesus got the message because he went out from there and was teaching another huge crowd, all Gentiles, all Greeks this time. And again, he asked us to feed them. The men were murmuring. To tell you the truth, we women were too. But we found what food we had. And he blessed it and broke it, and we gave it to everybody. And we took baskets of food left over. We got on the boat. I don't know which is worse, just being in the boat on the water, or what happens when we're in the boat. But at least this time, nothing eerie happened. Jesus just gave us a lecture. He asked us, are your hearts hardened? He's asked us, now, how many loaves of bread did we feed the Jews with? And we told him, and how many baskets of food left over did you take up? And so we told him that. And then he asked us, and how many loaves of bread did we feed the Gentiles with? And we told him, and how many baskets left over? And we told him that. Now, and I don't need a lesson in counting. We run a fish business. We couldn't count. We would have lost our good place in the market for Miriam and her daughter. We've been trying to get it for years. But he didn't explain. He just told us our hearts were hardened. I don't want my heart to be hardened. And then he took us on a long journey, way up north. And on the way, he asked us, who do people say I am? And we told him, Elijah, one of the prophets of old, John the Baptist. And then he said, who do you say I am? And Peter jumped in and said, you are the Messiah. Do you suppose he is? I know he's someone special with God. And then Jesus went right on and said, the Son of Humanity must undergo many things, be rejected, killed, and on the third day rise. And Peter jumped in. You know, they say we women talk a lot, but we can't get a word in ahead of Peter. Peter jumped in and rebuked him. And Jesus turned to him and called him Satan. You are thinking the things of men, not of God. But you know, Peter had a point. Why should someone with all these gifts killed. But Jesus didn't explain. He went right on to tell us that would be our fate too. He said, anyone who wants to come after me should turn away from their family, take up their cross, that humiliating and painful method of execution the Romans used, and come follow him. But whoever lost their lives for his sake and the good news would save it. But if we sought to save our lives, we would lose them. We were traveling south now, and again Jesus said, the Son of Humanity will be turned over to humans, who will reject him and kill him, and on the third day he will rise. And the men with us, they were debating which one of them was the greatest. And Jesus knew, so he called us all together and said, whoever wants to be first or great among you must be least of all and servant of all. And to show what he meant, he picked up a little girl and blessed her. And he said, if you want to enter the kingdom, first in the kingdom, you must be least, as she is least. And a young man came up that talked to Jesus. You could tell he was rich, not like us by his clothing. And he asked what he had to do to inherit eternal life. And they talked for a while about the commandments. And then Jesus said, go, sell all that you have, and come follow me. But the man couldn't do that. He went away sorrowful. And Peter jumped in again and said, we have left everything to follow you. And Jesus told us all, whoever has left fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers and lands and fields and houses for my sake and the good news will gain again in this age mothers and sisters and brothers and homes and fields, with persecutions, and in the age to come, the light of the age. We were approaching Jerusalem now, and for a third time Jesus predicted, the Son of Humanity will undergo many things, be rejected, crucified, and on the third day rise. I'm beginning to believe it. You can't enter Jerusalem, all these crowds, all these people, and expect the authorities to just sit there, unless maybe this is the apocalyptic change of the ages. You suppose it is? I've heard all about the birth pangs of the new age, the famine, the wars, the sufferings, and I don't know that I like it. But anyway, we're headed on into Jerusalem. And James and John came up, and they asked for the seats of power and glory to Jesus right and left in the age to come. And Jesus asked them, could they undergo persecution? Could they break the cup he would break? Could they be baptized with the baptism he would be baptized? And they said they could. I don't know that I could, but I've borne 5 children, and I know what birth pangs are like. But they said they could. But then Jesus didn't give them what they asked. He said if they could undergo persecution, they would. But this was no special reward in the age to come. And we entered Jerusalem and went up to the temple. And Jesus created a great big hoo-ha. He let the birds loose. He let the sheep loose. He threw over the tables of the money changers. He completely disrupted services for sacrifice. And then he told the temple authorities, the place should be a place of prayer for old nations, and you have made it a hideout of bandits. I thought we'd be arrested then and there. But we got out safely to where we were staying outside the city. And the next day, Jesus came in and was teaching. And everybody questioned him and challenged him, but he always was able to answer. And then one day, they told us to go and prepare the Passover meal. And we went, and the rest of them came, and we were gathered around for the festive meal. And it was very, very sad. Jesus told us this was his last meal with us. And he would not drink again of the fruit of the vine until he drank it anew in the realm of God. After supper, we went up on the Mount of Olives, and Jesus was praying, and he asked us to watch. But we kept dozing off. We had a big meal. And suddenly soldiers came in and arrested Jesus. And some of them took him away. And the men, the male disciples with us, they all fled, leaving us alone with some soldiers. Now Hannah said in their defense, the soldiers were more likely to arrest them than us. And I told Hannah, yes, that's true. But remember, they crucify women also. Besides, being alone at night with soldiers isn't a very good idea. And the next day we went out and watched Jesus be crucified. Hannah and I and some of the other women, we stood a ways off. I could hardly see through my tears. We think you saw us. I think you knew we were there. I think he was comforted. Then Jesus gave out a big cry and died. And we went and watched where they buried him. And the next morning, very early, we were going out to the tomb with herbs and spices to anoint his body properly for burial, which we hadn't been able to do. And when we got there, the stone was rolled back, and there was this figure of light, a man, a woman, an angel, I don't know. The figure of light said to us, do not be afraid. Jesus is risen. He has gone before you to Galilee, the place of God's rule. Go tell the disciples, even Peter, go to Galilee, and there you will see him. And we were awestruck. We were terrified. Like the men before us, we turned and we ran away, and we said nothing to anyone. And Ruth said, whoever has ears to hear, listen. And I, Artemesia, I say to you this morning, whoever has